community in Dunedin. Mr Chair.
I call Kevin Haig.
Mr Chair, I want to follow on from those thoughtful remarks from Dr Clark and perhaps make an initial point that what he's saying about culture is very interesting, because what we know about culture is that culture changes over time, so that it's entirely relevant to draw examples from other cultures about how we could aspire for our culture to be. But I wanted to pick up on the remarks made by the Minister and to cite the World Health Organization, and in particular their comment: exposure of young people to alcohol marketing speeds up the onset of drinking and increases the amount consumed by those already drinking. There's no question at all, Mr Chair, that alcohol advertising and sponsorship works. It gets people drinking earlier, and it actually increases the amount that they drink. In particular, it increases the amount drunk by those who are already heavy drinkers. In other words, it fuels the binge drinking culture that we have now. And it's interesting to me, sir, that the government is placing the entirety of its defence of what's currently in the bill on the shoulders of Chester Borrows, that none of the other members of the government, some of whom were lions in the debate on the age provisions, seem to have anything to say at all about this issue, despite the fact that there's considerably more evidence about the effectiveness of the measures that are promoted in the SOPs on this particular issue than there was around age. The Honourable Chester Borrows talked about the government's wish to have New Zealand research, and that's why it wasn't moving on this right now. So I found that a little surprising, because there is a wealth of New Zealand evidence available to the government on this point already, and I'll just cite a few examples of that. So, for example, penetration of alcohol advertising to minors was illustrated by research on the Chins ad, and some members of the House will remember the Chins ad, and I see people nodding around the House, and indeed, that's evidence of the pervasiveness of that advertising. Research showed that 97% of minors recalled seeing the Chin advertisements. 71% of those young people, those minors, knew that the ad was for Lion Red. 92% had positive views about the ads. 64% thought the Chin head humour would appeal to minors. And indeed, that's who it was aimed at. So, sir, that's a piece of New Zealand research that we already have. For me, that's evidence enough to move. New Zealand boys, in another piece of research, aged between 10 and 13, said they knew more about drinking from watching ads. But none of that alcohol advertising, of course, depicted any of the harms. The 10 to 17-year-old New Zealanders who recalled the most alcohol ads were more likely to think it was okay for kids their age to get drunk, to think that their friends drank frequently and consequently to drink more themselves. Again, New Zealand research on the impact of advertising and sponsorship. The highly internationally respected Dunedin multidisciplinary study found an impact and response to advertising on later consumption. Numbers of alcohol ads recalled at age 15 in response to a question about the portrayal of alcohol in the media significantly predicted heavier drinking among males at age of 18. Those who responded positively to alcohol advertising at age 18 were heavier drinkers and reported more alcohol-related aggression at age 21. By age 26, amounts but not frequency of drinking had declined for most of these young people. Those who had responded most positively to alcohol advertising at age 18 were the most frequent drinkers at age 26. Sir, I could go on. There is no shortage of New Zealand research on the impact of advertising and sponsorship from the alcohol industry on problem drinking. The jury is absolutely in. It is simply that this government is choosing not to respond to that evidence. The evidence is there. If the government was seriously interested in doing what the objective of this bill was, which is to minimise harm, it would be taking the steps advocated by the Commission.
Charles Chauvel.
I listened earlier